It's in the name.
Welcome into the Helping Healing Humor podcast with Blake and Travis and Will Mahan. We are going to talk a little bit about 2023, the future. It's about the future. Right after these few messages.
This episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast is brought to you in partnership with ministryleague.com. We would love for more people to discover this show, so please rate and review us on iTunes or your podcast provider. Feel free to share on your social media and subscribe at benandtravis.com for the free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living.
I'm Travis Creasy. That's Blake Hollimon.
Glad to be here.
All right, and that is Will Mahan.
What's up, guys? How are y'all?
We are rocking and rolling in 2023. This is the first episode of 2023, and as we now are back, as in Blake and Travis and Will.
See Ben.
Ben's been booted. He's not with us, as you can tell from the video and our intro, but he'll be joining us soon in a future episode. But on today's episode, we want to talk a little bit about 2023. 2022 was a great year. We talked about on the last podcast, raised over $20,000 for St. Jude. One of my favorite events was the Staying Alive Disco Dodgeball Tournament. We have a champion, Blake Hollimon, with us, winning the adult bracket of that tournament.
I've got the trophy displayed in my office at work.
So it's a nice weapon as well, ginormous golden wrench. Will, you participated in the overall championship, came up a little short, but you hit a half-court dodgeball in the hoop, which was amazing, which is a highlight of 2022.
Send us to Game 5.
Yes.
And it was me and the defenders of equal rights.
Yeah. And it was an amazing shot. Made the highlight reel.
Yeah,
I'll post that highlight reel down in the description for everyone to see, so you can see that smooth shot that Will made.
A whole lot more difficult with a ball that curves every 2 feet.
Yeah,
ginormous
ball with no weight to it whatsoever. So it's now, as this is being broadcast, it is January, and you guys are probably just now getting your arm strength back from having to throw that ball 1,000 times. If you're like me. That's why I was over commentating. But, as I said, 2023, hopefully more dodgeball to happen, some more running in July, which we're still going to get Blake in on at some point.
I'll stick to lifting the weights instead of
well, you got to be in training for defending the title of dodgeball as well.
We'll see.
But we did want to get on and talk a little about 2023, maybe some things we're thinking of as we go into the new year and kind of set resolutions, which we'll talk some about that when Ben joins back with us. But it's always good to get a little momentum going and kind of get some W's in getting that momentum, whether it's a spiritual momentum, a physical momentum, a mental health momentum. And that's something that all those things are kind of what we're about on this podcast. And so that's what we'll talk about a little bit is, what's kind of motivating you early in the year. We're recording this still in 2022. So what is your motivation as the calendar changes? I know some people look at it and go, it's just another year. And that's fine too. But we kind of around here are like, okay, what can we be different? 22 was a huge year for Ben and Travis, the Helping Healing Humor podcast, the Friday Refresh, and now the good old-fashioned dislike. But you guys just speak to it. Blake, we'll let you go first since you're the guest, unless you defer to one of us.
I'll go ahead. I've always heard and seen people talk about who do you want to be in 5 years? Who do you want to be in 10 years? And I've seen it said that people are often chasing their future self. And so what are you going to do this year to put yourself in a position to attain those goals? I reached out to a fellow here in our local congregation here at Highland Park, and I've asked him to be my mentor. So I'm trying to think of ways to reach out to people who may be more wise than me or have had more life experiences. And so I'm just trying to better myself. Now I've been married for almost 2 years now, and I'm trying to
He's an expert.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm just trying to, put myself in a position to be successful going forward for 2023, and then, as we continue, then you will eventually find that person that you were seeking for 5 and 10 years down the road.
Yeah. Reminds me of the Vince Lombardi quote of, we can't be perfect, but we'll chase perfection, we'll land at excellence.
That's right.
And so you always want to be growing and moving. And, to me, that's a really humble thought that you would reach out to someone. Jesus tells us that we're always to be looking for people to mentor ourselves, but there's an extra set of humility to be able to say, hey, I need somebody to come alongside me and kind of direct me and show me the ropes. And so that's really awesome, Blake, that you would do that. It's a great example. And I know Highland Park's really thankful to have you around these parts, even though Will might not agree.
I mean, I like him most of the time. We don't like each other on one day of the year, the good old Iron Bowl. But outside of that, we're pretty good. So he's a pretty good guy.
Thick as thieves, maybe.
That's
Can we
right.
say that? I always talk about Ben being my partner in crime. So I know about that.
We are the junior Ben and Travis. That's our 5-year goal.
Don't put that on yourself.
We're attaining to.
Have some pretty large shoes to fill if we're going to go that far into any rabbit hole. So.
Infamy.
2023 is going to be interesting for me because, as most people may know, it's my Jesus year, which means I turned 33. And so the day this podcast actually comes out is my 33rd birthday.
Well, happy birthday.
So, so it'll be interesting. And I think, and I've told Lindsay this over the past couple of years, is the years seem to be going a little faster now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, we always hear that and then you don't really believe it. And then you're going, oh man, like this really is. And the past couple of years, I know for all three of us, there's been tragedy, there's been loss, there's been a lot of things to where I'm at my point in life where I have friends that are losing things they love, people they love. Some of my friends have lost their lives. And it's just like as I'm getting older, one thing I'm looking at is what you say all the time is, am I where my feet are? Am I being present in the opportunities that I have, the things that are going on? And I also look at it and go, 33, we know that's a significant time in Jesus' life. If that's how old he was when he was crucified, what a lot of people tend to believe is going, look at what he accomplished by the time he was 33. Yeah. And I realize that he's the Son of God, right? Yeah. Like, I realize I'm never going to attain that. But I'm also looking back at it and going, what am I going to, like, what finish lines am I going to cross? What things am I going to accomplish, with the time God's given me? And so, like, I'm looking into this next year going, just take advantage of your opportunities and try and seek those opportunities out a little bit more. A dear friend to a lot of people, maybe even some listening to the show, passed away this past week, just unexpectedly. And I've been reading a lot of Facebook posts, social media posts, and you just look at his life and you never would have looked at him as this famous person.
Yeah.
But the stories about his life go, dude, this guy was unbelievable. And to me, he was just a guy I ate lunch with for 5 years while I was working in West Tennessee. And it just, you look back on what he accomplished, and I look to my future self and go, it doesn't have to be all of these big ticket, big deal items that the world looks at and says, here's Blake, he attained millions and millions of dollars, but simply this guy just goes, hey, he cared about people.
Yeah.
And people look at that and go, he made a huge difference in my life. And so I think as I go into this next year, it's what opportunities are there for me to develop relationships, to take advantage of the opportunity of just being with people. And not being so concerned about how many people I can reach, but taking the opportunity to reach the people that I do have.
Oh, yeah. I listen to Sirius XM. They're breaking down the top 1,000 country music songs, and that's just my jam. I got in the car and landed on 3, so I got to hear the top. Now it's going back through, and Alan Jackson has, a small town Southern man.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good one because it's a good reminder because, once again, Enneagram 7's over here.
Yeah.
It's really easy as we get into conference season. Went to Exposure yesterday and visited. CYC Dallas, CYC Pigeon Forge, and it's easy to get tied up in the big events, but it's really, what do you do with the people that are around you every single day, day in, day out? And as we podcast, and we have Ben and Travis, and it's so easy, and I've done it, to get into the checklist of we got to get all these things done, and it's a have to rather than a get to. And my kids, that's one place I look at every so often, and you can tell the time has passed. And it's like, I want to lay eyes on them. There are days where they go stay with my mom or stay in Albertville or whatever, and it's like I want to FaceTime them every time just so that I savor the time that I have with them and the relationship that's built there. And so I think about things like that, and the people that impact us the most are not really the Instagram and what we see on Instagram, and that stuff's great. We goof off and have a great time.
Yeah.
But it is the who you're around all the time. Did they get the best you? Because if they're not getting the best you, then it doesn't matter really in the long run who sees you and sees you where and what big screen you may be on or whatever. And it is humbling when you have kids at exposure come up to you and they're like, I don't know who you are or what you do, but I really like it. And I'm like, I don't know how that works, but cool, that's great. And, they want to take your picture with the little kids. That's pretty meaningful. But if they know who I am, but my own kids, the Creasy kids, don't, then I'm messing things up. And I just keep going back to the Philippians 4:5 in English Standard Version. Paul says, let your reasonableness be known to everyone. The Lord is at hand. I think that's been kind of my verse since 2020, because that's when everything went insane. And at many points, and you guys have seen them, my reasonableness was not on display. And it's so easy to get caught and drugged down. And a lot of the stuff on Instagram and social media is not reasonable. And so that's kind of the filter that I work with. Like, Paul's sitting in a jail cell, and his encouragement to those that are outside of it going through life, and we know the first century was fairly chaotic. And what does he tell them? Let your reasonableness be known to everyone. And that's a doorway to people, even folks that you don't agree with. I've come to honor and respect someone who can, almost without emotion, share their beliefs and realize, and part of reasonableness is going, somebody may not see it the way I see it, and being okay with that. That's how I kind of define reasonableness, that people have to make their own decisions, even in following Jesus, which is what we want everybody who hears this to do. If it's not you making that decision, it really is, you're not going to get the full power and gift of those things.
It was interesting kind of going to Scripture this past Wednesday in class. We were talking about how do we get to our purpose. What are the verses, what are the quotes, all those things that people are going to have all over their walls, for the first week and then forget all of them, by the second week of January. And a passage that we looked at was Genesis 1 and 2, and how we were created with this purpose to be close with God. And part of that probably comes through reason of mind, some sense there. But then the other thing that we looked at was after Adam and Eve were created, God then gave them work to do. And so we kind of just, there was a purpose there of, yes, I'm created to be close with God and to have fellowship with God, but that's not the end of it. I think a lot of times we look at it and go, I've got a good relationship with God, but I'm not doing anything about that relationship. And so we really kind of tried to change our mindset to go, we want to be close with God, but that's the start so that we can work for God, to produce. And in Genesis 1, he goes, here's what man's going to do. Here's your job. Rule the earth, be good stewards of everything that I've created. And what one of the teenagers brought up is, we're a part of that creation, to take care of each other, to be good stewards of each other, where everyone is taken care of. And so I thought it was interesting coming from a teenager, hey, we need to be good stewards even of each other, and to help each other. And like what you say, our world needs each other to be a little bit more reasonable, for sure.
I think it goes to Blake's mentorship. There are certain things that we don't talk about. And now we're shocked that we don't know how to talk about them, that our kids don't know. I mean, that's why I thought that was huge. A teenager brought that up because, religion and politics, you don't talk about those things. Well, now 2 generations, 3 generations after that has become faux pas to talk about. Nobody knows how to do it civilly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of an unintended consequence. And so once again, to go back to the mentorship, Blake, we need all that we can handle, especially going to young people. I can remember when cell phones were existed, and when they came into existence, I ran up a $700 phone bill. I didn't know how to cope with it. I didn't know how to use it in a way that was beneficial and so I didn't have a cell phone after that because it was through my mom, right? She was the one fitting the bill, so no cell phone. So I think we assume people know how to cope with things, and that's just not true, not accurate. What do you think, Blake?
I was just thinking about Will's point to God giving Adam and Eve a job.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you apply that to us, okay, we've got, as Christians, we have jobs, but in order to do that job, we have to be available. Mm-hmm. And when I reached out to the man in our congregation to help me and be a mentor to me, he was available. You know, if I come to one of you guys or to someone else and I need help, you guys are available. We want to be available to help in these situations. I was thinking about a verse, just a simple verse about being available, and it's denying yourself and taking up your cross daily. Mm-hmm. If you're going to do something daily, you have to be available. And I think that is one of the worst things that we could do today is to be so busy. Mm-hmm. Everyone is so busy. If you try to make plans with someone to do anything, it's like, I can't do that this day. How about, let's get our schedules together. So if we just relax a little bit and be available for any kind of situation, then I think that will help.
Well, the phone, my kids see me like this probably more than anything else, and that's terrible. Right. With my phone. Or they want something, well, just wait 1 minute, and then it turns into 20. Or, so available, that's such a big deal. Ben's even talked about the podcast turning towards people. Yeah. When they're talking to you, which is hard on podcasts because you're not supposed to turn. But, yeah, that even that shows a signal of attunement is what he gets. Yeah. I think the word he uses. And so even our body language shows if we're shutting people out or not.
This episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast is brought to you by Heritage Christian University. The mission of Heritage Christian University is simple. We aim to advance the churches of Christ by equipping servants through undergraduate and graduate programs. HCU produces effective communicators of the gospel, focusing on evangelism and a commitment to Scripture. Heritage Christian University offers the following degrees: Associate of Arts in Biblical Studies, Bachelor of Arts in Biblical Studies, Master of Arts, Master of Ministry, and a Master of Divinity. HCU is accredited by the Association for Biblical Higher Education. Since 1968, Heritage Christian University has offered affordable degrees in biblical studies, allowing graduates to thrive in their ministries without the burden of loan debt. For the spring 2023 semester, HCU is offering full tuition scholarships for all graduate-level students. For more information about Heritage Christian University, visit www.hcu.edu.
Our question of the day that I'm going to ask is, what is your highlight of 2022? And it can be fun. We can keep it lighthearted. I'm fine with that. It's kind of our fun question of the day. It could be several things, but just quick hitting. If you think back on 2022, you think years from now, you think back 2022, or you get that memory that pops up on your social media. You go, oh yeah, I remember that in 2022. What's going to be that? And I'll go and start so you guys can think. A couple weeks ago, got to go Army Navy, and that was just huge deal. Was so much fun. Bucket list. I'm still kind of dumbfounded that I made an Army Navy game before I made the Iron Bowl, but we'll take it.
America.
Yes, America. Respecting the troops. That was awesome. The dodgeball, because I think it was late 2021, and I was like, hey, we should do Disco Dodgeball, and then, of course, Staying Alive. So that was a lot of fun. We had a lot of support. Let's mention, Blake and all you guys showed up, and hopefully, I don't know that we can get many more teams and get it done in the time that we did, but we had 9 teams, I think.
We'll try. Show up and we will
Absolutely.
try.
It's all for St. Jude, so
That's right.
Anybody who did any of those are part of the Ben and Travis team. So what you got, guys?
I'll go next. I was looking through my camera roll just to kind of see my life in review here, and my 2022 was a year of fun events, traveling. I got to see Garth Brooks in concert. He was my childhood. 90s country was what I grew up on. I got to go out of the country for the first time.
Speaking of which, he was number one. Friends in Low Places was number one on the list. If you didn't guess, and I just ruined it for you, but nonetheless.
But I got to travel outside the country for the first time with my wife, and we have good memories there. My family, we went to Disney World and got to spend time with my mom and my brother and his family and my wife, and it was just so. I was looking back, and I've traveled a good bit, and I've got great memories with people I love for this past year. So.
Well, you guys sometimes, for being young, you get a lot of grief for being young, whippersnappers and all that stuff. But I will say one thing that I have really respected about the younger folks, younger than me, is you have quickly made it about experience, quicker than we did, and maybe even the generations older than us. That I got a lot of stuff. But now at 40-something, it's like, what experiences can I get? What things? And I think that sometimes we wait too long, and then it's like, man, I can't get all of those. So I would say, that's a big deal that you could say all that and say, my family went, my wife, and those things. That's huge, and it holds you over. Those are things that boost. Not that y'all, got along the whole time. I'm sure there was some discussion there, but you work through things, you get those experiences, and they're things that you remember for the rest of your life. And I'm sure Will's got plenty to share with us too.
I'll throw one more in there. The Good Old Fashioned Dislike podcast has been a weekly treat for me to come up with things to say about college football and pro football, and we bounce ideas off of each other in a infamous group chat, I'm sure. But I'm thankful for Travis and how he puts it all together into a 3-minute billboard for.
I feel like that could be our longest podcast if we really got down to it.
But that's also a highlight. I love doing that every week.
Yeah,
that's just when our reason goes out the window.
Yes,
right?
and people that only hear that or only see that on TikTok are like, these guys are so mean. And it's like, no, it's all a joke. It's all in jest. Most of it, but that has been fun. So.
Man, I'm like Blake. I'm looking through, and I probably got 1,000 pictures here. A funny thing that happened in 2022, I was speaking at a youth rally in Texas, and drove all the way out there, called the people that I knew, good friends with. They housed me for 2 years when I was an intern out there, and so just the coolest people in the world. And Lindsay and I took 2 of the high school girls with us because it was kind of a weird weekend for a lot of sports things going on in the Shoals. And we get 35 minutes outside of Dallas. So, like, you can see the Dallas skyline. Like, you can see it coming. And the girls are going, man, this is awesome. We left that morning at, like, 5, getting there. And then I call the people we're staying with, and I go, hey, we're almost in town. And she goes, why are you here? And I said, well, you told me to text or call as we got close. And she goes, I don't think the conference is this weekend. And I said, no. I was like, it's this weekend. I just pulled up, like, in my calendar, checked it, and she goes, no, Will, I don't think it's this weekend. And she said, I'll call you back. So I call the guy that's over the conference, and he go, did you miss the email where we changed the date?
Oh, I forgot about that part.
I thought,
I forgot about that.
Really? So then, like, every youth minister's nightmare, I've got to call the parents and go, hey, if you see some pictures of us doing things around Dallas, it's because there's no youth conference. So we drove out there. Great memory. Went to a Mavs game. Ate a bunch.
That's awesome.
Ate at Heart 8. You know the joys of Heart 8 and all that. So got to
the food is worth the trip alone.
Yeah, food was great. So we come back on Sunday, and then I leave the next Friday to go back.
Was that the Super Bowl weekend?
It was Super Bowl weekend.
Super Bowl weekend.
So leave the next weekend to go back to the conference and actually speak, have a great time. The people we stayed with were awesome. So that was a funny memory that I was reminded of.
And you got back in time for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we made it back.
That's what's crazy.
Yeah,
and then you got to eat a bunch of nasty stuff. I don't know if you ate anything
crawfish.
or not, but
Yeah.
oh, the crawfish was awesome.
Yeah, we did that.
Half pound of Reese's or
Yes.
Got to do that.
I
I also got to spend 2 weeks in Africa, going to African safari, go see Victoria Falls, meet with the brethren in Zimbabwe. So, like Blake, I got to go to Disney World with my family. I mean, it's been a great year for sure. So, just a lot of good stuff that happened.
Well, the podcast has been great. We've been blessed. I mean, we've had way more sponsors than we've ever had in 2022. Of course, we'd like to keep that rolling in 2023, and would offer anybody listening that might like to jump on and join the team, Ben and Travis. I see a lot of people out there doing 12 books, 12 months, and boy, do I have a book that you should put on your 12-month list. One for every month. That's right, Reframing Hope. Our journey through cancer adoption alone.
Entire book in a day and a half.
Yeah, so it can be actually a 13 books. That'd be a really easy one to throw on top.
Yeah.
Break the mold, rub it in everyone else's faces that only did 12. So you can go find that, right?
You will laugh. You will cry. You will be astounded by Whitney, not Travis. I mean, it's a roller coaster of emotions.
You can get through all of my stuff because Whitney's stuff is so good. But yeah, I'll put that link down in the description. Guys, thank you for joining us. Blake, thanks for coming out of the bullpen. You're awesome like that.
Right. Come out throwing heat.
There you go. Love you guys, and happy 2023.
Happy 2023.
Thanks for being with us for this episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast. Be sure to download our free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living, at benandtravis.com and receive all of our Helping Healing and Humor extra content directly in your inbox. We look forward to having you join us at the same Ben and Travis time, same Ben and Travis channel.